Time now on the programme for our Perspectives interview. And our guest this morning is a journalist who needs little introduction here in France. Malbrunot is one of this country's most well-respected Middle East correspondents. A prolific writer, he lived between Jerusalem and Baghdad for over a decade, authoring books on everything from the secretive relationships between French politicians and wealthy figures in the Gulf, the fall of Saddam Hussein and the hunt for bin Laden. He joins me now here in the studio. Good morning. Thanks for joining us. I wanted to ask you, first of all, about what is one of our big stories here on France 24 today. These reports that a Saudi dissident journalist, Jamal Khashoggi, has been murdered in the Saudi consulate in Turkey. Now, that's not confirmed for the moment, but if it is, what kind of response do you think that there will be from the West, from France, a country that has pretty close relationships with the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia?
It's a good question. First of all, I hope that we'll not reach this point and that Jamal is still alive. But if something happened to Jamal, I think the Western ally of Saudi Arabia should put pressure on Saudi Arabia, because this is for Saudi Arabia, it's really a step which has not been done before. So France and UK and US have to put pressure, but I'm not sure that this pressure will be exerted because, as you know, Saudi Arabia has very good relationship with Donald Trump, and in France we are in an embarrassing situation where we expect some contracts with Saudi Arabia. We have a diplomatic alliance, strategic partenariat, friendship with Saudi Arabia, and but we have to wait, because until now we don't know if Jamal Khashoggi has been murdered, as some Turkish sources said. But it's a very worrying situation.
Indeed, we'll see what happens when those investigations finish in Turkey. Let me ask you then about your latest book, which caused something of a storm here in France when it came out. It was an investigation into excess and wealth in the Gulf, and you accused some politicians here in France of having inappropriate relationships with figures in the Gulf. One politician sued you for defamation. You lost that case earlier on this year. So do you still stand by the claims that you made in your book?
Yeah, we did. And we'll keep on investigating on this issue and other issue.
What are the key? What's the key argument that you made about the relationship between politicians here in France and in the Gulf?
I think the relation has been polluted by money. France, the French economy has been weakened for the last 10 or 20 years, and the Gulf monarchy have a lot of money. They know us very well. They know our weakness, and it could be quite easy to bribe some politicians, not all, but to bribe some politicians. It could be easy. And when you are a politician, when you are in a trip in certain country there, when you get a Rolex watch on in your room, it's hard to say no.
Indeed, certainly an investigation that caused quite a storm here in France at the time when it came out. I want to ask you about the bigger picture in the Middle East at the moment. How do you see France's influence in the region right now? Emmanuel Macron setting himself up kind of all over the world as a bit of a counter to Donald Trump, arguably including in the Middle East. How do you see France's role in the region changing under Macron's administration?
At the beginning, Emmanuel Macron had a very good policy thing. We want to talk to everybody. We don't have to be a referee between the Shia and Sunni, between Saudi Arabia, Iran, etc. And on this issue of a strange relationship between France and the Gulf monarchies, he was also tough. After, you know, he has to be realistic. We have a close relationship with the Gulf. Iran is a difficult country, and he has been talking to everybody, which is good. He's talking often to Hassan Rouhani. He's talking often with Bibi Netanyahu and others. But it's not enough to talk. He has to suggest, to propose something. On the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, for example, France is very reluctant to play a role among the EU in order to get out of the crisis. On Syria, France has been prisoner of his previous policy. Emmanuel Macron looks for a role for France, but the game is quite over. You have Russia, you have Iran, you have Turkey, and you have the US in the northeast of Syria. So it's quite difficult for France to play an effective role. France is talking, Emmanuel Macron is talking. On the Iranian crisis, he thought that he could play a role beside Donald Trump. Donald Trump didn't send him back the lift. So France is a small country. We still have power, but on the ground, and France has a weak economy, and we don't have a lot of money, and it's difficult to have an effective diplomacy when your budget has a problem.
Indeed, unfortunately, we are going to have to leave it there. But thank you very much for your time, Georges Malbrunot, a reporter from Le Figaro, talking to me on the programme.